Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is going to be game number 2 between OGS Top and Fnatic's TT1. This time we are on Xel'Naga Caverns, TT1 spawning in the upper right hand position as our pink Protoss player. The lower left hand position, OGS's Top as the blue Terran player. Very interesting game last game, very interesting indeed. We saw TT1 after spotting OGS Top come out with a quick expand. TT1 went 1 gate expand. That's normal, that's standard. Now, a lot of times from that point, you will see a Protoss player get a Robo and another 2 to 3 gateways, and then just work into his mid-game Colossus, gateway heavy mix, eventually throw in some High Templar as well. TT1 didn't do that last game, though. He instead decided to go for a 6-gate push, which is something that I don't quite as frequently see against Terran players. I see it a lot against Zerg players. They forge fast expand into a 6 or 7 gate. But it was so interesting, and, you know, TT1... that didn't work at all. He tried to push, and Top was sitting with 3 bunkers, was able to get some repairs off on those bunkers by pulling SCVs in front of them so that even when those force fields got laid down, he could still get some repairs. And after easily defending that 6-gate push after that 1-gate expand, Top pretty much had the game. TT1, realizing he was behind, went up to charge Zealots, tried pushing out a second time, but Top just mopped the floor with him. So, yeah, it was a pretty interesting game number 1, and again, pretty interesting decision-making there by TT1. Here in game number 2, OGS Top will not be going for a 1-Rax expand, at least not in the way that he did last game. We can see he is coming out with that refinery, so the standard opener, 10 depot, 12 racks, and 13 refinery coming out here for OGS's Top. We have that SCV Scout moving out across the map at the exact same time, Probe Scout moving out for TT1, and as expected, TT1, very standard play. There's very little deviation up until that first Cybernex core finishes for a Protoss player. It's almost always pretty much the exact same build order. The only thing you might see variance is like a 12 as opposed to a 13 or 14 gateway, or even possibly a 15 gateway. That'll happen every now and then. But I mean, pretty basic build order to the start there, almost every game as a Protoss player. Now, the Probe Scout is in the main base, however, that first Marine popping out for a Top is going to force that away. The intel, of course, that TT1 was able to retrieve there was spotting that refinery, so he knows, okay, at least it's not going to be that crazy 1-Rax expand. That's a lot more difficult to pull off on this map as well. And actually, ooh, boy, a TT1 able to sneak on into the main base there, scouting out that factory. Unfortunately, we saw Top wasn't quite as responsive there with that Marine. He should have been able to stop that probe before it got too far in. If you're microing that Marine right away and you do that move shoot, but if you're within range of that probe coming towards you and you're able to pull back with that micro, the move shoot micro, you're supposed to be able to stop it. But again, if you're just like 1 millisecond off, he's going to be able to get away with just enough health to keep getting some scouting intel. So, unfortunate enough for Top, his factory has been scouted. Now we do have another Rax coming out as well, so we'll be seeing a 2-Rax factory opening here. Second supply depot going off at front, and again, he's trying to just make sure that he can channel any pushes that may come early on in the early stages of the game. And it does look like TT1 will be going for a 1-gate expand here this game as well as what we saw last game. We can see Top able to get that scouting information, hiding the SCV over here, pulling in with that secondary scout. He first scouted the expansion, and then again, he'll be moving in just to see, is there robotics, is there a Twilight Council, anything funny that I should know about? Hey, hell, is there a Stargate? I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities. Again, these things aren't likely after seeing that expansion, but still things you always want to check for. Secondary scouting, absolutely vital in this game. You know, as individuals, when you guys play StarCraft, you send out your first scout. Make sure you chill them out around that base after you leave for that first Marine or that first Stalker popping, and then try to push in for a secondary scout so that you can make sure you know what's going on. The more intel you have, the better. That's how it works, my friends. Stalker pushing forward, however, that's going to be walking into a tank, and spotting that tank is more than enough to send that Stalker back. If it were just Marines, he'd feel bold enough to be able to push on in, but going with this Marine tank opening here, Top might actually very well be planning a timing push here. This is a very interesting opening from him indeed, just massing up these Marines. We'll be churning out those siege tanks as well. We can see that siege tech is coming on through, and this is going to be some 1-base strong aggressive play early on here from OGS's Top. Now back over here for TT1, we can see he is going sentry heavy, which is pretty much per the usual when you do 1-gate expand, and actually transitioning his way into a 5-gate. Are there more elsewhere? No, it looks like it is just those 5 gateways for now from TT1, not coming out with that robotics, and again, that is something that is quite interesting indeed. Would certainly like to see robotics for his sake so that he can get out some immortals to deal with the tanks that are about to come from this push. But look at this, Top now planning to move out right when his siege tech finishes. Again, just massing up these Marines, so going out for a heavy Marine tank push and pulling a few SCVs in the mix. So very interesting push here from Top, and this is going to be a pretty devastating push to defend against for TT1 unless he is prepared. Tanks now setting up shop. Now the Marines need to do what they can to protect it. We're going to see a push from the backside there. Marines need to pull back. One tank gets target fire down. These Marines getting sandwiched, and actually look at that. That one tank right there surrounded by probes, and they're within the dead zone, preventing that tank from being able to fire against it, and that push got mopped up. Top in an awful position right now, taking heavy losses. TT1 is going to be sitting pretty comfortably from this point forward. This is almost a direct reversal of what we saw last game. In last game, TT1 planning that very early game aggressive push. This time it was Top, and now Top is certainly quite a bit behind economically as a result. He's going to have a very tough time sticking in this game. Taking a look at the income tab, you can see how far ahead TT1 is, having that nice and saturated expansion there, and he is still just on these 5 gateways, but he's comfortable with that. Here comes that robotics, exactly what I wanted to see. TT1 building that robotics right now. We will be seeing TT1 trying to move out and test the waters, walking into a little bit of tank fire there. That's going to be enough to actually force him to pull back right now. And clearly, Top is concerned about a counterattack, so we can see that full wall off now complete. Now, we have to be wondering, is Top planning for some late game, or does he realize that he's kind of went way too all in that first push to have it be unsuccessful, and he may be planning a second follow-up push. Again, this is almost a direct reversal of what we saw last game in terms of the roles that these players are playing. This time, it is Top behind after a failed initial push, who is trying to probably plan a secondary push to try to redeem himself. But again, it's not looking good. That's pretty much all there is to say about that. So here comes an Immortal immediately here for TT1, not even bothering going for the initial observer, because he is fairly certain of what's going on with Top, and he knows the position that Top is in. Again, Top is here still staying on one base. There is no planned expansion at the moment here for Top. He needs to mass up his forces, attempt another push, and just keep his fingers crossed that TT1 slips up in terms of micro, in terms of positioning, and that Top is able to come out on top as a result. One Stalker actually scouting out over here just in case there is any secondary scouting from Top in terms of an SCV or a Marine. He wants to be able to intercept that. We've got the churning out here of Immortals one after the other, and besides that, no other transitions. So we'll be sticking heavily on these gateways. It's going to be a total of 6 gateways that he'll be pumping out of, in addition to that robotics there. And here comes a clash right now, pushing forward. There's some force fields going down. We will be seeing the Zealots making their way forward. Nice force field wall. That's a pretty hefty tank line, and plus those Marines is enough to force TT1 back. And even though TT1 took some losses there, I certainly do not believe he is out of the game yet. He's got that superior economy. He has got 6 gateways worth of units to keep warping in, and he is continuing to pump out those Immortals as well. I would hold off on engaging at the moment, though. Those Marines engaging, they have got stim pack now too, and that could be a little bit concerning. But still, I don't know. It's a tough call, but you know, Top's got a lot of work to do to really get himself back in this game. The more time goes on, the better of a position TT1 is in, as his income remains strong and vastly superior to that of Top's. We're seeing more and more Immortals come out, and they will, of course, be trying to target fire those tanks. Nice positioning, though, by Top of those tanks, and trying to provide a buffer with those Marines and SCVs. To just look at this Protoss force, though, able to muscle their way through those SCVs, working up to the tanks now. A couple more Zealots getting warped in, and the tanks get demolished. A couple more Marines. Those will get mopped up from the remaining Zealots. And that's going to be it here for this game. That's pretty much the dagger in the heart for Top. There's really no recovering from that. He was able to do a little bit of damage, but is still just a little too far behind in terms of income. You can see, in terms of resources lost, yes, TT1 is in the worst position, but once more, look at the income. Realize how important income is in StarCraft 2, and you know, when you're behind economically, how difficult it is to catch up as time continues to go on. And again, as you can see, Top still not prepared to take an expansion. Now, he will be scouting out here with the SCV and actually checking the back door. He wants to move on in and just check, hey, how's that saturation there? As he got any good mining going on at that expansion. Also, possibly to check for any tech that may be hidden back here. Although it's far more likely that that would be in the main. It doesn't hurt to give that a look. So there goes the SCV scout moving on in and taking a look. And he's like, oh, damn. There's still probes at the expansion. There's still decent saturation. And unfortunately, unable to really scout any any tech at all. He'll be attempting to move into the main. That is unbelievable. Okay, finally slowed up there by the probe, and we're seeing just more and more units come out. And yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, the game's over. Again, I feel confident in saying that just because once more top is just way too far behind to really stand much of a chance. Here comes an observer scout just for shits and giggles, if you will. TT1 moving out with this just to check. He's like, pretty sure what's going on, but I want to confirm 100% as to exactly where top is in terms of this stage of the game. As we can see over here, we take a look at the main base. We're going to see that saturation. The resources available left getting smaller and smaller as time goes on. I mean, top may eventually even be in the position where he's lifting off that orbital and landing that at the natural expansion. Got to give props to top for still staying in the game, even in what seems like a hopeless situation. Back over here, still just sticking on these 6 gateways and that robo, and he's not even bothering to tech up at all to Colossus, feeling that that's a little bit unnecessary. Now that he has amassed a fairly strong force, we will be seeing TT1 push out. We take a look at the army tab, 71 army supply for TT1 as opposed to the 46 of top. Stalkers leading the way, trying to push back those Marines. The Marines do have Stimpak and Combat Shield. What do they lack, though? They lack Medivacs to help heal them up. So after 1 or 2 stims, certainly becoming very weak, and that really makes it so that they're kind of a one-and-done kind of position there. The Marines need to do all their damage in that first engagement, and if TT1 engages and pushes back and lures out a stim from top and is able to pull back from that stim, then he can be in a very strong position. But here comes the full force of the Protoss army now. We're seeing a force field wall trapping all of those Marines on the one side. However, those Zealots get demolished. That tank line getting quickly worked. There are just way too many Protoss units. And finally, what we probably should have seen in the last engagement, top calling the GG. This game, we saw a role reversal of what took place last game. Last game, it was TT1 pushing out early and unfortunately not doing much damage. This game, it was top who pushed out early, not able to do much damage, attempted a second push. That didn't do much either, and TT1 with that superior economy was able to do a final push and mop up the remainder of top's forces. All right, guys, that was game number 2. We are now tied up 1-1 here between top and TT1. Game number 2 coming up in just one moment. As always, if you like the content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Keep watching and keep owning.